I'm your co-host, one of your co-hosts, Dr. Sherelle Hobson, and I have my partner in crime, Mr. Brian Street. And we're here on Thursday at 4 p.m. Central Time. But the first thing I need you to do before we talk about anything else is I need you to share this live podcast right now because I'm going to tell you something. I know I say this every week. I say everybody's so important and everything, but I'm telling you, it's just every week is getting better. So I'm just excited about our guest that we have today. He's um, a remarkable young man, and he's doing a lot of great things here in the Black community and globally too. So you need to make sure you tune in. You never know who's in your circle of influence that may need to hear his story. So please make sure that you're doing your job right now, and that's how you contribute to the Black podcast is sharing. Um, if you're just logging off and saving the show for yourself and not sharing it with your audience, then that you're doing our community a disservice. So please make sure that you're doing your part in sharing the Black podcast every Thursday here. Well, every other Thursday here. We changed it up on y'all a little bit because we're going to be bringing some special things coming very soon, especially in the new year. So make sure you're looking out for that. Um, Brian, we going to bring our guests up and let them know that want to make sure you maximize all the time that we have with him.
Oh yeah,
So
for sure, for sure, for sure. And just as we always say, and you hear in some of the conversations when it comes to the Black community, we're not a monolith. You can't look at me and expect that the next Black man that you see is going to be just like me. You can't look at Dr. Hobson and think the next sister that you see is going to be just like her. So we have to understand the fact that we have a spectrum of who we are, and we are all powerful. We all have value, and there's so much the world can gain from us. So instead of talking about it, I'm going to let this brother be about it, and we're going to go ahead and bring our guest to the stage. We have BlackLoveWins.com, brother Ben Evans. How's it going?
Good, good. How are you?
Doing well. Blessed to have you with us.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for accepting the invite to be on the Black Podcast. You were super, super busy. So when you said yes, I was like, we are in there like swimwear. So we thank you for uh,
And thank you for the
accepting.
invitation. I am honored to be here. Honored to be
Yes,
here.
absolutely. Thank you so much. So we want to make sure that we maximize all our time that we have with you. Um, as I was talking briefly before, we know that behind every glory is a story. And I feel that in our Black, or we feel that in our Black community, we don't share our story enough. And so we want you to start off with where you're from, the dynamics of your family, so that we can get a little bit of an understanding of who you are and why you're doing the things that you're doing now. So if you can share that with us.
Absolutely. I am from the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Philly in the house, home of some of the world's greatest artists and leaders. And I am glad to be a part of that number. Grew up, I'm the eldest of four, two sisters and a brother. Unfortunately, lost my brother to gun violence some years ago. And, I grew up in the typical Black family in the hood. We started out in a nice, affluent Black neighborhood surrounded by Black people. And then they Section 8'd us out to the, Caucasian community. And, that's why the title of my book is I'm Black, I'm a Minister, and I'm Gay, because it like tells the story of my life. I experienced homophobia from the Black community before I experienced racism from the white community. But it happened very early on in my life as we moved from Black neighborhood to white neighborhood. I did not grow up in church. I decided as a teenager to start going to church with one of my relatives. I had an aunt visiting from Miami who was an evangelist, and her daughters came up and they'd have some like fiery prayer in our the room that they were staying in, and so they wanted to go to church and went to church with my eldest aunt, and I went with them. And even when they left back to Miami, I still decided I wanted to still go to church. And eventually my parents got tired of dropping me off. So they started coming with my siblings. And next, all of my relatives started coming to church. And so I don't have the typical I was made to go to church experience. I was trying to find God in so many ways. And then after, a great high school experience, I attended a World Communications Charter School. We had an internship program, and I interned with the Philly Tribune, which is a Black-owned newspaper, and then interned with the City of Philadelphia Mayor's Office, Mayor John F. Street. And I was on my way to New York. I thought that, I wanted to be an anchor with Good Morning America. So I applied to NYU, Fordham, Hofstra, Cornell. I mean, I was trying to get into all of them, got into some, waitlisted others. They were all too expensive. And so my principal knew a recruiter from the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, Dr. Johnson, who was a famous dentist in Philadelphia, got me into FAMU, and it was the best decision of my life. I always tell people I got on 95 and just went the wrong way. I was supposed to go to New York, ended up going to Florida. And the FAMU Black College experience changed my life. And it's where I found my voice and myself and was able to step into a place of leading in a lot of Black spaces. So, and then after FAMU, moved to Miami to start with an accounting firm. Really didn't like it, left, and then co-founded BMe Community, which is the largest social entrepreneurship network for Black people in America, along with Travian Shorters and Sarah Maltador. And we have expanded to 7 cities, awarded over 400 Black fellows for doing great work in the community, raised hundreds of millions of dollars collectively amongst those fellows to do work for us and to elevate the truth and the fullness of the Black story. And not just the stereotypes, and not just we come from slaves, and not just and so that's what this book is about. That's what I'm about, is telling the full story of who we are, and I'm telling the full story of the Black queer experience, and that's how I got here.
Well, we can just drop the mic and we can just end the show. And we thank you for sharing that. When you talk about, a lot of times we talk about the Black community, and usually with young Black men, from what I have studied and just noticed being in education for 16 years, a lot of times they gravitate towards sports. That is usually their motivation to make it to the next level, or go to college, or get out of their situation. What was it for you in high school, that was your driving force to move on to the next level? Because I know you talked about your aunt and stuff, they would come in the prayer, and you kind of you started venturing out with who God is, and trying to get that experience. But what else was it about that you experienced during high school, or just that transition from high school into your adult age, was your motivation to leave Philly and be where you're at now?
Well, I want to go back quickly and say, because this is work that I've done with Be Me, in that there are 100,000 plus Black millionaires. Only about 7 to 10% of them receive their money or their wealth from sports and entertainment. And so most people only are exposed to careers and jobs that get you out of poverty through sports and entertainment. So I also often ask people, and this is nothing against sports and entertainers, I'm an entertainer, but I often ask folks, why aren't we telling more of those stories of how Black people have attained and gotten wealth? If only 7 to 10% of the 100,000+ Black millionaires in America received it through sports and entertainment. And so I was exposed to those avenues. I worked, in addition to interning with the mayor's office, worked with my family business. My aunt, who I went to church with, who lived in Philly, Lana Felton Gee, who was considered the Iron Lady of Philadelphia, was exposed to so many avenues of wealth and avenues of success. She ran a successful government and public relations firm in Philly, and every major event that came through the city she was involved with, and America's largest 4th of July celebration was founded by her in Philadelphia. And so it was exposure that led me to want to leave Philadelphia and get to New York City. That's where, the city of, Alicia Keys, Jay-Z, New York. I'm not going to sing it, but, I wanted to get there and be a part of the lights, the magic, the action, and be on TV. And so it wasn't the the wealth of being on TV that inspired me or motivated me. It was just being able, like the host of like Good Morning America and Today Show, they would travel the world telling stories. I'm a storyteller. And that's all I wanted to do, was travel the world and tell stories, make people smile, make people happy. But I also think I wanted to get far and far away from where I was, because I was running from, the perception, the persona that people had placed on me because I was queer, because I was gay, or because I was feminine at times. I was trying to find a new life. And so instead of New York, I ended up thousands of miles down in the South in Florida at Florida A&M. But it was exposure to the many paths of what life could look like outside of the hood that inspired me to have so many dreams.
Wow. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. So when you first when you started to seek like who you were or who you are, um, if you can explain or kind of talk about that experience as far as your support, from who was your support, and what was that initial conversation when you decided, this is who I am and this is the journey that I want to be on. Because I feel like sometimes people think they have to separate who they are. Like, I'm either this or I'm that, or I'm this or I'm that, and by reading your title, it's like, I can be all of those things. Like, I can be all of them. Why do I have to just be a Black woman or
Mhm.
smart or,
Mhm.
so can you talk about that experience, just like when you're just discovering who you are, um, and also being able to say, but I also want to do this and I also want to do that.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that experience for us?
Well, my silent mentors, they're mentors in my head. I've met them all several occasions. But Oprah Winfrey, Steve Harvey, Barack Obama, Ellen, all do things that I want to do, tell stories, right? Lead politically, change lives. Oprah Winfrey doesn't have to get up and do another thing in her life if she doesn't want to. She could lay in bed for years and have people feed her grapes and cheese and crackers for the
And her
rest.
people can lay in bed for
And
years.
her people can lay, the people who are feeding her the cheese and the
Yeah.
crackers can lay in the bed for the rest of their life. But yet she is motivated to get up at 4 a.m. every day and work. Now, if one of the wealthiest women, one of the wealthiest Black women in the world can get up at 4 a.m. every day and get to work, who am I? And I'm trying to be like that. And so she's not limited. Steve Harvey's not limited. I mean, you would think he's Caribbean with all the jobs that he has, but he is living his best life doing everything that he wanted to do. And when I get to the end of my life, what motivates me is I don't want to have a shoulda, coulda, woulda story. I don't want to see a big screen flash before me of all the things I could have done if I had taken the risk, if I had not let fear be my hindrance, if I had not let people's opinions be my hindrance. So watching them get up every day and do what they do. President Barack Obama doesn't have to do another thing for the rest of his life. Wealthy, pension for the rest of his life from the federal government, Secret Service for years, planes, private jets, but yet he's getting into the storytelling industry, the movie industry. I mean, he and Michelle Obama, Mrs. Michelle Obama, are doing so much. And so those are my like silent mentors. And then I have those in my life who, like my siblings, who I am living for. I'm living for myself mainly, but living and opening doors so that they know it's possible. And it's possible without being a martyr. I don't know if this comes from church or comes from the Black community, but we think we have to be so lowly, and we think we have to be so humble, and we think we have to be, poor. And no, I'm gonna do this good work, and I'm gonna make some money, and I'm going to win, and I'm going to open doors for others. I'm blessed to be a blessing. And so I have so many people who motivate me to keep driving and keep going. But watching their lives, I mean, I was an Oprah fan and watched all the behind the scenes work. And I'm like, for her to have that drive and motivation and she doesn't have to do it, it's because of pure love and pure passion. When you tap in who you really are, um, outside of people's opinions, you have really tapped into some power. When you start doing things because you want to do it, you've tapped into some real power. I talk to a lot of folks, especially that come from the Caribbean, where their parents want them to either be a doctor or a lawyer, and they have so many issues trying to step outside of those bounds and be creative and whatever it is, or even in the athletic space, children and youth who are just really powerful athletes, but they don't want to do it. But their parents are like, you're going to do it. This is going to pay for college. One, stop making another human being trying to be who they are not. That's number two. I mean, number one. Number two is be who you want to be. Because at the end of this thing, they say, we only live once. No, we die once. We live every day. Make the choice to live for you. And that's my motivation.
Wow. 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 I'm gonna let Brian go, and but I know that I talk about a lot, my why behind why I decide why I want to do the things that I'm doing. Um, and it was some of the traumatic things that I went through, even losing my brother. And so I know that you can, understand that just the amount of pain that I felt. Um, but the pain turned into my purpose. It turned into the power that I started to find, like, okay, this was once a problem that I saw, but now this is a problem that I'm having because I personally feel, um, I know the type of effects that, when I got when I got my doctorate, my study was, or is, um, African American males and the effects of athletics on their educational plans. And I started understanding how a lot of our black men and women, but mostly our black men, would really lose their identity in athletics. That was a part of who my brother was. That was him. So when those things didn't turn out the way that he felt they
My
should, you
goodness.
know, I feel like he passed away. And this is my opinion, but I felt like he passed away of a broken heart, of
Mm,
a of depression, a silenced depression. And so that's when it became, this is something that I have to do. So it was something that I knew, I know this is a problem. Let's see how I can make something happen. And then it turned into, I have to make this happen. If I don't create this change is not going to happen. And so a lot of us feel like we had that certain thing that drives us, to motivate us to walk in our purpose. Some of it's traumatic, some of it is just our motivation, some is it from people that we see. And if you look at now, I mean, we talk about mentors, we talk about the struggles of our black men, and the amount of trauma that they deal with now, in our youth. It breaks my heart. I couldn't even sleep last night. I was thinking about, what's his name, is it Henry Ruggs, how fast his life is going to change. You go from being a rookie to making millions, to probably buying stuff for your family, for you, to you don't kill somebody, and they are going to throw away the key because they always want to set an example. And it just breaks my heart, of someone who probably spent his whole life preparing for this moment,
mhm, mhm.
and within a day, your whole life changes. And my heart just started to just sink. And I was like, why am I carrying this burden? I don't even know this man. But it just shows how invested we are when you talk about living your purpose every day, living a purposeful life. And so it's heartbreaking when you see, like, oh my God, that one thing one thing he had is just gone, within a seconds. And so I just appreciate you sharing, being very vulnerable on your journey, because we need to hear more of those stories. So thank you for that, Brian.
Yeah, well, I'll say it starts at the source, right?
Mm.
We need to start, and it's happening with the generations, Generation Z, millennials, where we are breaking into more avenues of living, right? We've been boxed in since we've been brought to America. And I know people are like, oh, here you go. It's the truth. Everything has a cause and effect, right?
Yes.
And we've
Yes.
been boxed into a certain way of living and life that is not serving us any longer. And it's nothing, again, I'm not coming against athletics or anything, but the star football player is honored better than the violinist in black families. But why don't we celebrate the violinist and that creativity and the pathway to life through that arena. In addition to, I've seen so many young people put all of their eggs in that one basket. And when it doesn't come to fruition, their lives are essentially for them over because they never saw themselves past that sport. And that's a very, very dangerous path to be on because you are then lost when it doesn't happen, or when you don't make it. And the odds of making it in are slim to none. And so, why do we as a community put all of our eggs in a path where access is slim to none? It's like, putting all of our trust in playing the lottery. It's not going, like, most of the people who make it are the exception, but they are not the general path to get there. And that's very, very dangerous, to plan your entire life around that when life is so much more. And it speaks to our worth and what people think we are, right? When LeBron and everybody was trying to stand up for black rights, they said, just shut up and play ball. That's all you're good for. Shut up and play ball. Make us money, right? College players playing without making money, making the schools millions and millions of dollars. The highest government official paid in the state of Florida was Bobby Bowden, who was the coach of Florida State. How is the highest paid state official a football coach? I mean, we have our priorities and things mixed up, and it will take years to overcome. But I
Yeah,
really have faith in this current generation to make those
absolutely.
changes and tap into the talent that we really are.
Right, absolutely. And
Yeah,
that's why you have organizations like yourself that really, and HSBA that talk about, yeah, you can be in athletics or you can do what you are passionate about, but those things are not who you are. And so you
Absolutely. They don't
having to,
define you.
yeah, being able to identify this is, and that's one of the things I really like about LeBron. I feel like he understands his gift, but he also knows his power of his voice. And
Yes.
so he's like, I can stop dribbling this basketball because I'm still gonna be paid. Y'all the ones ain't gonna be paid. So let me say what I want. And that's why they be like, okay, LeBron, here, wear the Black Lives Matter shirt. Just go ahead, just just whatever we need to do to
Because it,
just
it doesn't make him.
it
His
doesn't make him.
school
So
in,
that's
in
amazing.
Akron, phenomenal. What he's doing with those young people, phenomenal. His heart is he's strategically utilizing his gift to do what he really wants.
yeah.
Because he's ultimately a storyteller and ultimately just wants to bring people together.
And I think about so much of what you've said, all the way back from your mentors from afar, your mentors, your silent mentors, um, how it lines up with what you were just saying as far as not putting all your eggs in one basket. Now, you mentioned multiple different individuals who are your mentors, and each of those are different and one element or another. So, something that you learn, something that you see value in based off of your mentorship that you get from an Ellen is going to be completely different than something that you get from a Steve Harvey.
Yeah.
So, kind of speak to the importance that you have seen in having different types of mentors, because some of these young athletes, they got a mentor who did the exact same thing that they're putting all their eggs into that one basket for, but they don't let anybody in their ears who are telling them, hey, take a look at this too. Hey, make sure you put a couple eggs over here too. To kind of speak to, in your life specifically, what has it meant to have mentors from various different spaces, various different areas?
I think one of my gifts is that I learn from other people's mistakes. I'm not the one that needs to experience the stove being hot in order to believe you that it's hot. And so I look, I have a both and type of mind. I'm looking at current, but I'm also looking at the end. And so when I think about people's life journey, I'm always interested in how they got there. I was a kid that just sat under old people and listened to them. How'd you get here? What was the mistake? What were the mistakes you made? How did you overcome them? How do I not make those same mistakes? And I was always forward thinking ever since I was a kid. And so it absolutely has to come from within. But I would say, I was a part of a National Association of Black Accountants for years, and our motto was lifting as we climb. And it did not hit me until this year. I went back to homecoming, hearing from so many adults who were like, you changed my life. You helped me with my resume. You helped me with my resume one time, and I didn't have to ever use it again because I kept getting promoted. Or the things that I would. So I think as professionals, right, who've seen, the onus is on us to reach back and lift as we climb. Like you may see that young person with that one mentor and they're not interested in any other mentor. But we, as the enlightened ones, offer ourselves and offer our advice and wisdom. And if it lands, it lands. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I think those who make it, because what you do find is a lot of folks who attain wealth and a lot of Black folks who attain wealth, they go missing. They go dark. You don't ever hear from how did you get there? Where are you now? Why aren't we hearing your story? And so I think it's important to have a diversity of thought when it comes to life. And when you are one tracked, and when that track doesn't work, what do you do? I always have a plan B and C and D. And people get mad at me because of the questions I ask in order to get to those plans, but I'm not putting all my eggs in this basket when life is so unpredictable. In addition to, we are born and birthed with so many different gifts and talents that go beyond just a one track path,
That's so real.
especially as Black people who have gone through so much trauma and gone through so much heartache and challenges. We are literally being chiseled into very, very powerful human beings. And so I absolutely recommend getting multiple mentors who speak to different areas. Now I want to get into some real estate, made a little money, want to do something with it. So I'm going out and get me a real estate mentor. Never had one before, but now I need one. And you don't have to have them for life. You have to have them for the moment. And if the moment calls for you to have a mentor in thinking about your career, or a mentor in thinking about family life, a mentor in thinking about, buying a home, no one has to ever do anything alone.
That's real. That's so real. And I look back to whenever I was working on my master's degree, I had two mentors, very strong mentors in my field of study. They put me on so much game. They got me connected with the mayor, to the governor. I was speaking alongside the president of the university. Like, they really aligned me for success. But my whole idea was to take my traditional academic education, to start my own social enterprises. So,
Mhm.
okay, I need somebody from the business space. After I finished, I connected with a couple business mentors, financial mentors, and they've helped me navigate into other areas of life. And so many people will get caught up on one person. Well, my mentor is this, my mentor is that. And like nobody else out there is like him or her. Well, of course, they're not exactly like him or her, but maybe you're not exactly where you want to be yet because you're only listening to him or
Mhm.
her. So
Mhm.
I have individuals reach out to me on a regular basis for various different opportunities. And I always tell them, like, this is what my vision is. And to get to where I'm ultimately looking to get to, I don't know what all pieces of the puzzle is going to take. So I'm always open to listen to what you have to offer, because I don't know if this person maybe that next mentor that's going to help take me over that next hill, but at least give them the respect to just listen, but have your backbone, your
Yeah.
assertiveness. No, that's not what I'm about to be getting myself involved with. Kudos to you. But really having that discernment, yes, be open-minded, but always know what your mission is and ultimately what impact you're looking to make on the world, and it'll steer you to the proper mentors. Is something that I've seen. So just looking at where you are right now. And but first off, I'm gonna be a little bit selfish. So I used to work at the Western Colonnade there in Coral Gables as a valet attendant way
Oh,
back in like
wow.
2014, I believe. Man,
Wow.
I had some fun nights there, man. It was my first
Yes.
time driving a Maserati,
Yes.
first time driving an Aston Martin. I had a nice time working there. So I was looking at your website, and your organization is not too far away. So what would you say, just looking at the physical geographical area that you're fixated, what would you say? I don't know how do I really want to put this. A lot of people look at Coral Gables in South Florida, because I used to live in Kendall. So they look at Coral Gables as like that's the rich Cuban community. So when it comes to the work that you're doing with your organization, do you have any type of stigma from the surrounding community based off of what you are actually doing? And do you find it difficult to get people from, maybe let's say Liberty City area, whoever it may be, to come in and actually, want to be more involved?
Um, so one, there's no stigma. The what people generally asked when we first started was, well, what about black women? Because we
Mhm.
first started out by awarding black men. So what about black women? What about black women? Or you'd run into people who would say, well, what about Latino? What about Asian? And even I was in the eye doctor, and I was telling somebody about the Oregon, and a white lady overheard. She said, well, what about my kids? My kids need help. My kids are this and that. And so, one of the things, and I learned this from my mentor, Trademan, is that just because I love my mama, don't mean I have hate for your mama. I just love my mama. That's fine.
And that's
Just
what they try to say with Black Lives Matter. They were like,
right,
"We're not saying you don't matter. We just you were talking about
right,
this matters."
right. And so, we as a black folks have faced so many challenges. And it's really hard to get people to see the source of those challenges. And we do a lot of work in asset framing and narrative change. And for instance, I would be given a speech, and to your point, when you present people with a light, or like Oprah talks about the aha moment, they have no choice but to be drawn in. So we don't have to do much work to draw people in. What we do is work to elevate their understanding of the circumstance. So I'd be giving a talk, and I'd say, black men take care of their children more than any other racial group in the entire country. And people would be looking like, huh, what? And I'd say, okay. I say, raise your hand if you hang out with a deadbeat dad. Like, he don't take care of his children, and, he's not a good father. A few brave people will raise their hand. I say, now give me a big, resounding round of applause if you know a black man who does his thing, takes care of his children, shows up. I mean, the room erupts with applause and people are on their feet. I say, you know the truth, but the narrative is counter to the truth. The narrative says that black dads are missing, when in actuality, black dads, whether they are in the home or outside of the home, married or divorced, bathe, read, take care of, involved in school with their children more than any other racial group in the entire country. Black women start businesses at 2 times the national average. Black people give of their income to charity at higher rates than any other racial group. To talk about the geographics of Miami, there's an island in Miami where the wealthiest people live. But there's a city, Opelika, where some of the people who have economical challenges live. But yet, in that small city, they give more of their income to charity than the people who live on the richest island in Miami. And so black people are fatherly, giving, entrepreneurial. We serve in the military at higher rates than any other racial group, so we're very patriotic. But these are not the stories that are told about us. But once you expose people to the truth and the full narrative of who we are, it begins to destigmatize the picture of who we are in America that has been intentionally told and millions of dollars put behind keeping us in our place. And so it is about exposing people to the avenues that created the wealth for Coral Gables, right? And telling the truth of how this wealth got here, and who they stole from, and pillaged to get it, and giving people their just due. I'm all for reparations. We gave reparations to the Japanese community, and look at how a lot of their communities are thriving simply because they were given an equal footing. And that's all we're asking for. So there's not too much stigma of people getting involved. There's a challenge of getting people to believe what's counter to the main narrative or the meta narrative being told. But once they're exposed, there's no going back.
I
Absolutely.
love it. I love it. I love it. That's what it's all about. And exposure is key. Like, that's it right there. Because depending on where you grow up, the access that you have to physically get outside and see other things, that's going to be the difference between where you ultimately end up and where you won't. Because you don't
Mhm.
know what exists when you've never been able to lay eyes on it. You
Right.
see
Yeah.
TV, but that's fantasy. Like,
Right.
that's not me. I mean, maybe
Mhm.
real over there, but like, I can't see that being my life. So having those mentors that you can build a connection with,
Mhm.
and understanding that, if I can't physically relocate. Let me mentally relocate. Let me start having conversations with Mr. Benjamin over here with Brother Ben, because he's been places, he's seen things that I haven't. So if I have access to him and he has access to that, that shortens that distance of where
Mhm.
I can ultimately get. So coming out of the city of brotherly love, how long have you been in Miami now?
I live in Los Angeles.
Oh,
Okay.
you're in Los Angeles, but your
Yes,
organization is in Miami.
yes, it's founded in Miami. I was in Miami for 6 years, and then I've
Safe.
been in LA for 4 years. But I will say two things. One, to the part about exposure, people can't become what they don't see.
Hmm.
And for those who have been exposed, I believe it's our duty to turn around and expose others to the very same thing, at least at minimum. And I really crack up because, with my book, I'm Black and I'm minister, I'm gay, and you'll have people telling me what the Bible says and this is wrong. And these are people that haven't left their city. These are people that haven't been on a plane. These are people that haven't traveled around the world. How can you tell me a definite about something and you haven't even been around the world where millions of other people live totally different from you? And so I don't the definite that I rely on is love, but that's the only thing because life is full of experiences that I've have yet to encounter, full of people that are different from me, that have been raised different from me, that believe different from me that I haven't encountered. And so having that open mind to receiving, it goes back to sourcing mentors. You don't know everything.
Mhm.
And it's great to
Yeah.
connect with people who do know something. I know a little bit about a lot. That's how I stay relevant. That's how I can engage in conversations because I learn a little bit about a lot, but I don't learn it on my own. I sit and have conversations with others and like, wow, didn't know that. Thank you for teaching me.
Mhm.
Lastly, to your
Mhm.
point, I was thinking when I go talk in schools and I talk about real life, most young people really don't know how much it costs to live. It's like,
They have no idea.
That's true.
I asked, how much is your parents' phone bill? How much is mortgage? No clue. We need to do a better job of teaching our families the real cost of living and then
Mhm.
the type of job that you will need to get in order to maintain that living. I would go
Right.
through an example and I'd say, what do you want? I want a house, I want a car, I want a phone, I want a this. And I start writing out the cost for that. I said, so in order for you to have this and live comfortably, you need to make about $130,000 a year. Do you know what jobs pay $130,000 a year? No. What do your parents do? This do they are they so this is a struggle here because there's a deficit. You're
Right.
expensive as a child. You cost money, and so I think we need to do more of that real life scenario so that when young people do depart and are ready for their life, that they are exposed to the realness of it all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you heard the. I'm sure you've heard the fella Kevin Samuels that like gives women. So I heard a few clips of his. I don't like a lot of what he has to say, but there's a breakdown that he usually does as far as saying a woman wants a high quality man, and then he'll ask you, so what type of car, what type of house, where do you want to live, so on and so forth, and then he gives her a breakdown of how much she and or her significant other would have to make to be able to have the lifestyle that she wants. So I literally just started listening to the guy and kind of drown out the craziness that he'll say sometimes, but really listen to the breakdown of the finances. Because in our community, and a lot of these women, these black women, they are completely just oblivious of what it will cost them to have some of the things that they were saying that they want. But at the same time, that logic can be taken and you can flip it into a presentation and go out and give it to a high school student, give it to one of those teenagers. I got a 14-year-old myself who's ready to get out there and start spending money and such. If you know how much it costs to actually live, you're going to want to slow down, pump them brakes a little bit. But that's something very, that's something that's very true, especially in our community. Whereas a lot of us, specifically when we came from a lower income background with our parents, we were indirectly programmed to have a poverty mindset. Going into the stores, we ain't buying that. Don't ask for this. Don't ask for that. That's what them rich white folks buy. That's we were indoctrinated to think that we are financially less than, and we grow up not really gaining that information until we come into a financial crisis. So
Yeah.
being yourself and surrounded by some of the affluent individuals, being able to raise funds at the levels that you've been able to do so, what would you say will be, I would say, the top two takeaways you like to leave with the audience, just kind of speaking towards financial knowledge and being literally in the right financial mindset?
Well, I want to take it back and then bring forward. It all starts at, again, the source, the start of life, and we are unfortunately taught to source everything externally before looking internally, whether that be love, whether that be money. I'm not a fan of that guy. I don't like how he demeans people live. You don't have to be mean to tell a story, but it gets some views. So, live your life. And those who subject themselves, live your life. But one of the things he talks about is, why do you think you deserve to be given all of this? No one is obligated to give you anything. We have to work for everything we have and everything we want. I used to say, "Oh, I can't wait to marry up, marry up." And one of my friends said, "Ben, do you not realize you are the up?" I said, "Oh, wow. I am the up." And so I'm not looking for anybody. I'm not, people base their relationships off if this person had money, if they had this. I'm not looking to take care of anybody, but I'm not looking for anybody to take care of me, because I don't want to be beholden to you and my life being in your hands because you're taking care of me. I want to work for everything I have. It's mine. Diana Ross said, "This is my money." Whoopi Goldberg said, "I don't want to share my money with nobody. I don't want to share my house with nobody because I worked for it." But I think we have a huge disconnect with money, where, and it again goes back to the psychology of what we've been. Our bodies, since we've been brought to this country, have been used for money, right? To make other people money, and then when we were set free, make money for ourselves.
Our bodies and our minds.
Yes. But the relationship that other people have with money is learning how to have money make money, to where we don't have to use our physical bodies, our brains to be there every day. And there's so many paths to get there that needs to be taught and elevated in our community and not stigmatized. There's so much fear behind it, because of the uncertainty of it all, but it's working for so many people. We need to get to a place of that exposure and exposing people, because once you make that first batch of money and you didn't have to lift a finger, you're hooked. There's no going back. Anybody who has been exposed to money making money for them never goes back to clocking in to make money. And
Absolutely.
that is the disconnect that we need to, begin to bridge within our own communities. No one's coming to save the day. No one with the money is coming to tell us how to make the money. All these YouTube commercials, "Oh, I'm about to show you how to make money." If you were going out there making money, you would not be on video trying to tell me. If you need my money and my body to make money, then this is not a real solid platform.
That's
And
real.
so, bridging the disconnect with money and finances, and moving away from the fear of, our old folks, they would stash that money in that couch or stash that money in that bed. It ain't doing nothing but sitting there. There's so many avenues to stretch your money and make it grow that we are not exposed to. And there's so many organizations, unfortunately, they're free resources, but in order to get the true knowledge, you have to pay somebody, pay an advisor, et cetera. If people don't have the money in the first place, they don't have the money to pay the advisor to make the money. So we need more solid programming, and homeschooling, because the system's not going to teach us. People say the system's broken. The system's doing exactly what the system was designed to do.
To do.
We are the manual labor for the system, and they're not going to teach us how to elevate and become the 1 to 2%. We have to teach ourselves.
Absolutely.
Man, now I love you. You mentioned the homeschooling aspect. I do a lot of work in the financial education space, and I homeschooled my daughter throughout the entire year last year. Now she was already, she was smart. We have some decently intellectual genes. Her brother, my son, He was tested when we were living in Miami as gifted. So he's been going through the Excel program, so on and so forth. Well, she, after the entire year of me not only schooling her on first grade work, well, she was in first grade, and I didn't even, I forgot what grade she was in because I was giving her first grade and second grade work just to kind of push her a little bit. By the time she was in her last quarter or so of the year, I was giving her third grade work because she was getting it. Whereas if she was sitting in the classroom, they're not going to push her like that. They don't want to see, they don't want to see her actually excel at that level. So I continue to push her, and eventually we got that letter. We think Ivana needs to be tested as gifted. Anyways, long story short, it gave me so much more pleasure as well to know that I am so much more actively involved in my child's education because I'm sitting here listening to them on a Zoom and their teacher is just watering down US history. And I'm like, this is my son, Antonio. Let's talk after you finish that class because that's some BS that he just told you. So we have to continue to be more engaged, but become a whole lot more engaged in the whole financial aspect because most of us, and I'm using personal experience as an example, we don't start to gravitate towards financial education until we fall in a financial hole. And then we start to learn, oh my goodness, I didn't know that exists. Oh, my credit score is that important. I didn't realize that. Oh, so my money can actually make money without me punching a clock? What? How do I do that? And we're so conditioned to learn a little bit and then take a test that we're too afraid to let the test of life push us to go and learn more instead of waiting for someone to say, here, try this. So what would you say, just to kind of just to cap off that financial component, what would you say would be the top 2 to 3 areas that parents, Black parents, should make sure that they pour into their kids before they leave high school?
Well, before you even start pouring, you need to understand where to block.
Hmm.
And again, the system is designed to do exactly what the system is supposed to do, keep us mediocre. And it's not that your daughter isn't gifted, or it's not that I wasn't gifted. I was tested for being gifted. They wanted to skip me a few grades. It's just the standards are so low.
Yeah,
And because when you have these low standards and low performance standards, anybody who is above that I'm not
gifted.
magically gifted. I'm just a hard worker. It's not rocket science. You know, we talk about closing, and I get really passionate. I'm sorry for yelling.
No,
we
go
get
there.
so, we talk about closing gaps, closing gaps. I don't want to close gaps. America is number 35th in the world when it comes to education. Like, what are we closing a gap towards? Mediocrity? Um, and so, when you have kids who come from struggle, who come from countries like India and China, where it's so competitive and education is so important, and parents are really involved in that process, they come here and they're rock stars. They come here and they're stellar. I was just with Dwayne Edwards, who is the sneaker designer. He's designed for most of the brands. He's opening up a school in Detroit, an historically Black college specifically for sneaker design and business. And we were talking about predominantly white institutions, and there's no predominantly white design school. All of the folks are recruited from other countries, from Asia, to come in and design things that we wear, when the creativity really lies with us. So, one, understand where to put the plug in and stop. Two, begin to look at ways where we can become the creator instead of the consumer. Because when you are the creator and not the consumer, it opens up other avenues and pathways to success. Two, like you were doing, as hard as it may be involved in your child's education. My mom was my first teacher. We had extra work to do during the summer. Everybody outside playing, we doing homework. Mom, are you nuts? I'm so thankful. I was mad then, but I'm thankful now who I am when I think about contrast and compare to other folks. And it's like, oh, well, you didn't have my mom. You didn't have summer school homework. You didn't have to do a book report during the summer. And so we cannot rely on the system to train and educate our children as best as you can. And I know families are struggling, working several jobs, minimum wage. but find ways, community programs. My mom is a teacher in an Afrocentric school. We need to get away from relying on a system that is meant to demean us, harm us, and keep us mediocre to excel us. It's not going to happen. So look for ways to be creative, not consumer. Look for ways to be involved as much as you can, or find community programming that will be involved when you can.
Wow, that's awesome. I, so many great things like you talk about, the system and the journey, and we don't tell enough stories in our community. One thing I've always said is that Black people are so powerful, but we're just sometimes we're not as consistent as we should be. We when we want things to happen, we make it happen, and then, like you said, once the ones make it, then they gone. And so it's like we're just constantly always feeling like we're having to start over, or chase this or chase that. And a lot of times it's the money, it's what we see as success, which is cars, the women, the men, the this, the that. We're not talking enough about building schools, building, creating our own Black market, creating our own, stuff. And if we do create it, we create it on a smaller level. I remember when I first told Brian, I said, "Hey, I want to, let's do a podcast." And he was like, "Okay." So we started talking about it, and then um, I just took the lead on finding guests. And so I would shoot guests over to him, and I'd be like, "Hey, I'm gonna invite Jeff Johnson." He's like, "Where you getting these damn names from? Where you getting these people from?" And I said, "Well, shit, if we're gonna do it, then let's do it."
Do it. Let's do
I
it.
mean, I don't want to invite the people that we talk to at the local barbershop. Like, and so that was how we started. It was just saying, if we're going to aim high.
Yes.
We don't have to always start over. I remember when someone was telling me when I got my doctorate, they said, "Well, you got to start from somewhere." I said, "Why do we have to always feel like we have to start from the bottom? Why do I have to always start from right here?" And so one thing that, well, even when I think about the Bible, we talk about like Proverbs 16:3, and he says, "Commit your works to the Lord, and your plans will be established." So if we stop spending so much time on thinking we have to go know this person or do what this person is doing, if we just stay in alignment on what we're supposed to be doing, the works and the plans and the purpose that he has for our life, he will align the people, the organizations, the space. I know that you talk about where you're being in Los Angeles, or you grew up in Philly. People may say, "Well, why didn't you do something in Philly?" Well, maybe God's calling him to do something in Miami. Maybe he's calling God to do something in Las Vegas. Maybe God called you exactly to be who you are, a minister, a Black man, a gay man, or whatever it is that you define as yourself. And say, I can still do these things. I can still be important in my community. I can still have a voice. And so I appreciate you being very consistent in the plans and purpose that he has for your life, and being very true to who you are. Because I believe that no matter what our background is or where we come from, whether it's Philly, whether it's New York, or El Paso or Mississippi, if we would just learn to be consistent and know who we are, and the gifts that we have, because our gifts will make room for us, right?
Mhm.
A lot of times we stop planning or dreaming because we don't know if it's going to make money. Well, I don't know if it's going to make any money. It'll make money, but it's not going to make no money if you don't do it. So we have to learn how to just continue to operate in our gift and allow it to manifest so that we can create a harvest
Yeah.
for other people. So I truly appreciate you continuing to sow. And like you said, everything starts from somewhere. And so it's your journey, it's your story that is going to continue to help our community, Black men, Black women. People always tell me as well, they said, "You're a Black woman, but you did a study on Black men. Why are you so passionate about Black men? Why you don't do anything for Black women? Why you don't say Black women need to do this or start an organization for Black women?" But I truly believe that if we can continue to build our Black men, our Black women will follow. And we're so competitive as Black women. We're like, we ain't gonna let you be great by yourself. So when we see you rise, we trying to get we trying to get there too. And that's what it should be, us bringing each other up. So I truly appreciate you doing that. If you can just leave us with that one thing that you feel like, hey, this is heavy on my heart. I must say this one thing. And also let us know if you have any events coming up, where we can buy your book, where we can find
Yeah.
you, and all those great things as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. To the point that you were making, instant gratification is the killer of dreams. And when people are looking for that instant thing, you give up on what is coming. It's like baking a cake or making a turkey. If I put a turkey in the oven and it's done in 5 minutes, I don't want it. That thing has to marinate. And our communities, when we find things that is for something, you don't have to ask, well, what about what's missing? You go find what's missing, right? What about black this? What about no? There's something else out there. Go find it. But I will close with this, and you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at iBenCarlton, IBenCarlton, and on Facebook at Benjamin Carlton Live. And then I would love for you to visit my site and grab my book and support this tour that I'm on, Stand for Love, Elevating the Black Queer Experience, at blacklovewins.com. Blacklovewins.com. And I named it that because after the Love Wins campaign and we got marriage equality passed in 2015, most major organizations dropped the black queer arm of whatever they were doing quicker than a bad habit. And we went right back to not mattering. But black love does matter, and black love wins. So I want us to win at being who we are. And my closing statement is black culture is the heartbeat of the world. Black African American culture is the heartbeat of the world. It is emulated, it is mimicked everywhere you go. Hip hop and R&B, acting, fashion. It is all black African American culture. When you think about the source of black African American culture, it is queer black culture. Who wrote all those amazing songs in church and directed all those amazing choirs and preached all those amazing sermons? Black queer people. Who wrote all the amazing movies and the plays and the music we listen to? Black queer people. Who is styling our favorite celebrities and coming up with all of this fashion for the world to emulate? Black queer people. So in essence, black queerness is the heartbeat of the world. And that's all my message is elevating the black queer experience, telling the truth of who we are, and erasing and decolonizing the images that cause us to believe that being who I am, a proud black gay minister, is wrong. And helping people to overcome the narratives and the false doctrine and the dogma that teaches that anything attached to African spirituality is wrong. When Beyonce came out with Black is King, a lot of black churches lost it. Jesus is king. Jesus was black. So essentially, black is king. And Beyonce's doing this and doing that. It's the demons. It's not. It's us. It's the source of who we are. And we've been taught that anything is African is anti, and anything is African is the devil. Got to get rid of that. Ain't no way they hid a white baby in Egypt in biblical times. There was actually almost no white people in the Bible. But the more, and I want to rough up every pastor that I ever sat under. It's like, hey, you had one job and you didn't do it. You're supposed to, study to show thyself approved. They say most people who go through theology school end up leaving the faith because you realize all the falsity and the false doctrine that is a part of it. But I just want to leave that black queerness is literally the heartbeat of the world.
Yeah.
Man,
Thank you.
we are, man, living in your full self, exemplified, exemplified. And I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Um, so many people, I would say, need to follow you, to listen to the words that you speak, because regardless of who you are in whatever spectrum of life, you got to be you. You got to be you, because one thing I always pour into my clients is you can go out here all you want trying to be who you think others want you to be, but that crack is going to show eventually, and you're going to be exposed. And those who truly were meant to be part of your life are going to see that falsity, and they've been faking this whole time. I don't want to deal with that. And then those who you've been faking for, who saw and thought you were something else, oh, he's been faking this whole time. We're done with him. So where are you to go now? Just be you. Just be you, and what's meant for you will come and get you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I
Well,
appreciate it.
we
I
thank
can't
you
wait
for
to.
being you.
Yes.
We thank you for being you because
Yes,
you're doing
indeed.
you well, and so we thank you for that. And we're family now. So when
Yeah.
we send you an email, we call you, we are just touching bases and want to make sure we stay connected because that's what it's about. Continuing to sow and continuing to pay forward. So we thank you for taking the time to be on the Black Podcast and share your story. And we just look forward to all the things that God is going to be doing in your life. And it's I don't even believe that you have touched the surface yet of what he's going to be doing, and
Your
so we
mouth to God's ears.
so we just want to be in it. You know what I'm saying? We want to be around. We want to see it. So thank you for being you and continue to be you because you're doing you well.
Thank you
Yes.
very much.
And hold tight as we put you backstage because we're going to come and, say some closing words with you after we close down the show. All right.
All right,
So,
so make sure that you grab and learn more and grab the book at blacklovewins.com. You'll learn more. And like I said, this is only an hour. Now, I'm sure he has plenty of other stories that he can share with us, but what he has shared with us today can touch anyone's life. You know, sometimes we say, well, that person, I'm not like that person, so it don't matter. But his story, you can change. You can look at his story and you can evaluate your own and say, what am I doing in my life? Am I taking the necessary steps to be where I need to be? Who am I helping? Who am I taking with me? What's the story? What are the changes that I see that need to be made? And so, like he talked about the gaps and closing the gaps, and people saying that there's challenges. Well, if you would do something in your space, there wouldn't be as many gaps. So we need to make sure that we're operating in our space so that we're not allowing the system or there's an educational system or the justice system or whatever. We don't let those things define who we are. So just making sure that you connect with other people, and like you said, whether you have a mentor that you can actually touch and talk to, or there's a mentor that you can adopt by watching Oprah or Steve Harvey. You don't have to know those people to learn and grow from their story. So I really appreciate him saying that.
yes, indeed. Take a look at his social media. I took a little glimpse earlier. Lots of resources. He points people to education. So don't feel like you have to figure it all out by yourself. There's those who are out there doing it, and they have the resources to help you get pointed in the right direction. So,
Absolutely.
off that note, that is our show for today. I didn't bring my charger back here. My battery just told me I need to plug it in. So, perfect timing. But we'll be back. We're continuing to plug away at our guests, but also make sure you keep your eyes open for our actual Spotify podcast that will be going live starting in the month of December. So, off that note, we shall see you next time. Y'all make sure y'all share this content. Y'all stay safe out there.